This video is a continuation of my previous video on Sonic X-treme. If you want more context on what this game actually is, I suggest you check that out if you haven't. But if you have, then on with the video. In 2005, a listing would appear for a long-lost Sonic game. It was listed by an anonymous former Sega employee who found the disc in their former stash and remembered how valuable it was. The auction would immediately catch the attention of the Sonic community, who wanted to grab their hands on Sonic's first foray into 3D platforming. The ensuing events, although dramatized, actually did happen, and I swear I'm not making any of this up. The Sonic community during the late 90s was quite the interesting phenomenon. The drought between mainline entries had been extended by the cancellation of what was supposed to be the first 3D Sonic game. Oddly enough, this cancellation would bring Sonic fans closer than ever, because during this time, the internet was booming. People made fan sites all over cataloging everything they knew about Sonic or just random thoughts about the games. Of course, the drought brought on by the cancelled game's rocky development would soon end with the release of Sonic Adventure, which would bring in new life to the online Sonic community at that time. It was during this time where the first video game prototypes were found. Sonic was one of these such firsts. In 1998, a man named Simon Y discovered a ROM file of what looked to be an earlier version of Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Posting on the Usenet forum alt.sonic the Hedgehog, he eventually uploaded it on his own website and it blew up. Almost like moss to a flame, its release brought an online community that was obsessed with unreleased games. These were the beginnings of the lost media community online. Its discovery led to a fanbase hungry for any piece they could get from those games that never came to be. And this leads us to the online magazine Lost Levels Online, a website dedicated to cataloging and talking about unreleased games. In 2003, staff member Jonathan Allen would write an article about Sonic X-treme, its history, and why it was cancelled. It was just another game on the pile of other games the website covered. There wasn't anything new in the article, just information available at that time. But the words in this article do not matter to our story. It's one of the people who saw it. You see, this page was noticed by a former Sega employee, who just so happened to have a prototype build of Sonic X-treme. A discussion would begin in early September 2005 on the rare game discussion website Assembler Games, and the floodgates would open. The author of the Lost Levels article, the Red Eye, would begin the thread with information about this build, and what the disc was, clarifying that the disc was a demo build, and not the full game. Regardless, people wanted to know how much the build was worth. So around how much does he want? 50? 100? 250? 500? More? It would be fun to have the guy answering questions right here. I know he doesn't want to be known, but he's not obligated to divulge anything that he doesn't want to. It could make for some very interesting topics in the future. As I said in the post, he's expecting 4 digits. The sums you have mentioned are between 2 and 3 digits. He doesn't have a set price in mind, and he's taking offers. Certain details were contested by users, such as the possibility of another demo with a boss battle, or how it could or couldn't run on real hardware. Another contested detail was that the demo was one of a kind and that the other versions were destroyed? Yeah, apparently according to Red Eye, the employee took part in destroying Sonic X-treme demo discs, and that this one was his personal disc. But then why would he want to sell it in the first place? The details all seemed really fishy. The users of the site started to ask one really important question. When would the bidding start? Because, you know, we are apparently going to buy this build for 4 digits, and as a community, we should probably strive together to raise enough money to buy it, right? So, the threads end here because the archive.org page for it doesn't archive anything other than the first page. But thankfully, there's another fully archived thread from a website that was specifically catered to Sonic the Hedgehog. A day after the assembler thread, Red Eye would jump into the Sonic Retro forums to discuss how Sonic X-treme was potentially on its way to get in the hands of fans. Of course, they first focused on betting the right amount on it. It was very high for literally everyone involved. But as it turned out, some of these users in the thread actually did have enough money to buy this thing. Okay, I actually have more than enough money to buy this, especially if I call in the rest of the debts I owed. I really don't think the game is worth a 4-figure sum though. Fair enough, it may be rare. But is a game really worth that much, especially one that is incomplete? I'd need to hear an extremely good reason to pay that much for this, otherwise I won't bother.
I don't wish to spend a 4-figure sum just for the sake of the community, cause I'll get nothing in return. I'll just see how things go though. But users still obliged. They didn't want another member to do all the work for them, and waste all that money on what is essentially a short demo disc. Also, side note, there apparently was a video demonstration of it that has been lost to time, because I swear I cannot find a single glimpse of it anywhere. But anyways, this attitude actually raised an interesting question. If everyone bid some cash towards it, who would actually end up getting the game? Some people said the highest bidder should get the game, while others wanted the website higher up to get it. Either way, the one thing the users wanted was that the demo get in the hands of someone who actually cared about it and would dump the game online. Another argument going around this time was that the game's selling price was just too high. Some people even went as far as to say it was all a scam. I mean, come on. Burning a CD and dumping the ICO file is easy if you just follow a few guides. No matter how rare a piece of media gets, people should always have access to it, right? Also happening during this time was Qjimbo and Red-Eye's feud. Qjimbo was another user of the forums who, after noticing the Sonic Retro thread, hopped in the assembler thread and asked Red-Eye about certain details. Mind you, this wasn't like a few small questions, it actually ended up getting pretty spammy. Red-Eye knew that the user he was talking to was Qjimbo, and he kindly asked for this user to stop bothering him. And so, Qjimbo started spamming the ever-loving shit out of Red-Eye's AM messages. Side note, AM is AOL Instant Messenger. Q even went as far as to share their private messages on the Sonic Retro thread, which went about as well as you'd expect. Anyway, back to the actually important subject. Eventually, one by one, the users started to finally bid money for the game. $100, $200, $500. Slowly but surely, the forums were getting close to acquiring it. But a mysterious individual would put a real monkey wrench in the works. An anonymous collector would bid $2,500 on the game, and eventually, this anonymous buyer would post on the assembler thread and reveal their identity. Okay, seeing how this has finally been found, and the fact that I can afford it, I will bid $3,000 for this item for 3 reasons. 1. To benefit the Sonic community. 2. I fell in love with the game when I first saw the pictures. And 3. I promised my little brother I would buy this for him. Furthermore, I will sell copies of this copy to anyone who wants it, for $40 a piece. You may contact me during day hours at MadMoxie on AM. P.S. If anyone else outbids me, I will raise my bid to beat theirs. Finally, it seemed that the game was on its way to be discovered and dumped online. Some people thought it was just too good to be true, others almost cried tears of joy. People wanted to help Ratman out because he wanted to benefit the Sonic community and share a piece of gaming history. Other people were cautiously optimistic, of course, but they all just waited for Ratman to get in the Sonic Retro forums and post there. And eventually, he would enter the forums. First off, let me thank you all, especially Simon, for helping me be a part of these forums. About the MadMoxie AIM name thing, somebody hacked it and took it over, so I took the pleasure to create a new name, Metaphysical Mind. Thank you all, and I hope the upcoming release of the bin/Q image on the site will enhance S2B's importance to the scene. Despite some people getting confused over his location and AIM messages, eventually the discrepancy subsided and the community started to have hope again. People kept bidding in the assembler forums, raising around $3,000 in the process. But they would hit a roadblock with something odd. Sonic Stadium, a massive fan site, made an article about the forums and put it in the front page. Now the relatively small effort would suddenly become huge, and it even reached the Sega.com boards. Afterwards, they found out that the MadMoxie user from the AIM messages wasn't Ratman, but so was Metaphysical Mind. Despite claiming that he moved to this account, it would appear that he was lying. The user's hopes started to get dwindling. An argument started over it yet again. Fucking goddamn it. I'm starting to think that this guy was a shill for either the anonymous collector or just plain damn someone who didn't want us to have the disc. Unless he shows back up and explains himself, I've seen far too much to still think he's legit. The conversations continued. Is the CD even real? Who really is the anonymous collector? Is Ratman trustworthy? Day by day, these questions kept piling up, until finally, the auction ended, with no Ratman in sight.
But eventually, he would respond to everything. "You have all been fucked by the Great Red Rat. I was hired by the anonymous collector to make sure his bid was uncontested and outdone. And the Red Eye knew this. Have an unpleasant day, shitheads. Ah ha ha ha." The whole bidding was internal and never meant for anyone else to bid on or own. The Red Eye and the collector only publicly gave this information out only to make you wet your fucking pants. Either way, you would never have seen X-treme in the light of day. You may blame the Red Eye, the middleman, and HL718, the collector. Furthermore, the two AIM names I provided were not so fake. Mad Moxie was the ex-Sega employee, and Metaphysical Mind was the anonymous collector. The item was never meant for the Sonic community to have, only the collector. I knew tipping the fan community off would cause all sorts of weird bullshit like this. Anyway, this guy's lying, and the anonymous collector who won isn't HL718. It was the end of the road for the search, it seemed. Everyone just agreed that some random guy bought it online and kept it in their possession because it was so rare and valuable. People tried to give suggestions on what the owner could do, like rip the ICO file, upload footage of it, heck, even sell it to other users. It's not really a problem of cash, I think. Here we are making researches about the Sonic history. Sonic X-treme is one of the greatest mystery about Sonic so far. This would at least Sonic 2 beta. Seeing that this copy is now gone for anybody else than the Sonic community is like losing the greatest hidden archaeological secret in a lost pyramid. Some collectors want to buy items because they are rare. Some others, however, don't think only about money and want to make the discovery of the unknown past, only for the whole knowledge of humanity. Haven't you read? These people could care less about just owning the original copy or the pride they get from releasing it to over 1,000 rejoicing Sonic fans. They just collect it and keep it for themselves, because they feel like it has lost its value when other people have copies, which in a way it's pretty damn selfish. And the discussions continued. Why would Ratman do all this? One user stated that it could be revenge for something that happened years prior, and eventually, Ratman would post one more reply before going silent. Ice Knight was right, I did do this for revenge. It was the perfect way to bring chaos to you all by screwing your chance to gain Sonic X-treme. I got the last laugh here, bitches. The S2B forums really shouldn't have banned me before. If you didn't, you might have bought Sonic X-treme. Oh well, your loss, not mine. With that being said, fuck you all and I hope you all die. P.S. Please relay this message to the S2B boards. Eat shit and die. Sincerely, the Great Red Rat. Wow, what an asshole. Anyway, I think we need to evaluate how we deal with these situations. A couple of problems I noticed was how slow we were to react, and how we were all panicking and scrabbling for cash. I propose to solve this, we start a beta fund, so we can buy protos as soon as they become available. Obviously after checking they're not hoaxes. Well, I guess that's over. All of this was for nothing. All the fights, all the board hopping was for something that just ended up in the hands of someone who didn't care at all. Maybe Ratman was right. Maybe the Sonic community never truly deserved to have the game in the first place, and that it should have remained as a misty memory in the minds of fans. Now, before we get to the other part, I feel like I need to explain some things about the research I've done for this video. So you remember how in the beginning I mentioned that only a single page of the assembler thread was archived? Well, almost the entirety of the sources for this whole ordeal aren't archived. We have to be thankful that the first page of that assembler thread is archived at all, because the entirety of another thread after the auction ended isn't archived. I tried checking the Sonic 2 prototype forums, but that led me down a rabbit hole I don't have time for here. The Sega.com threads also aren't archived. There was even an entire compendium of what happened on a place called Shit. Reportedly it was like a wiki type thing that would have been really helpful if it was archived. I'm sorry if this video has been a bit blotchy at parts. I'm really just trying to piece together information using what we do have. Thankfully, the Sonic retro boards are accessible without the archives, due to the website still being up. I think the reason for why the sources on this are so weird is because the page for it was created not long after the topic ended. Also, that page was moved in 2019, so... Oh yeah, that reminded me. So you know how you still didn't know who the anonymous collector was? That was until 2007.
when it was revealed that this person was none other than Assembler himself. He revealed this by doing another auction. This auction was eventually noticed by Chris Sean, who was the lead designer on the game. Long story short, this build managed to get some hype behind it, and eventually released on the 16th of July 2007. And then the demo ends after 1 minute. Look, I'm not saying this was disappointing, but after all we've been through, it's kinda weird to have the ending be this anticlimactic. This demo also featured minimal files in the game data. Oh well, at least it was better than literally nothing. Other Sonic X-treme prototypes and even the final build would be discovered after this whole ordeal, but they're not that interesting in my opinion because their discovery is much more well known and boring. These whole events play out almost like a classical play, with antagonists, character arcs, motivations, and magic MacGuffins. If you look deep enough into these threads, you will find a web that is a lot different to what it is today, but in spirit they aren't that different from what we experience on a day-to-day basis. This whole kerfuffle is honestly such a fascinating blip in internet culture. I don't think anyone who was there to witness it will ever forget 2005 Bizarre Autumn, when the Sonic community got the closest they ever had up to that point to getting Sonic X-treme. But I mean, come on. All of this just sounds so absurd. 4 figures for a video game prototype? I mean, who would pay that much money for what is essentially lost media? Right? Right?